hope. I mean, I'm sure the world joins us in the dark prayers to the plague gods.
Oh yeah. Doing a summoning circle for Nurgle to be like, yes, please. Okay, I'm gonna start recording now. Hopefully, not incriminate any of us about wanting the U.S. president to be dead.
Yeah, there was a great bit today from CNN was filming the president as he left the hospital,
Right.
and there was a guy just screaming, is just being like,
Oh,
if anybody wants to go after the president, they have to get through me first. I would die for that man. I would die for that man. You're just like, come on, dude, shut up.
Come on, man.
Come on, man.
Come on, man. Just shut up. Shut the fuck up.
But in conclusion, I fully support you not paying attention to anything involving our shitty country.
Well, like, our election is very soon.
Oh, nice. Which one? The one for Australia or New Zealand?
New Zealand.
Ah, okay. Gonna repeal all those laws that got passed for The Hobbit that like unions are banned.
That was weird. My phone rang and it like cut the audio.
Oh, you're on dial-up.
I mean,
I was riffing about how your country's like Pinkerton agency was formed around The Hobbit being filmed.
Oh my god! But like, that shit changed so many laws in New Zealand. I don't know if I've ever told you about that.
No, I watched the most I know about it is all the stuff from Lindsay Ellis's video.
Right. Yeah. I mean, she covers it pretty well.
Right.
But those laws are still in effect, and it didn't just affect like people that work on movies. It's any contract worker.
Right. God.
How sick is New Zealand of the Lord of the Rings shit by this point?
Very.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Video Games Are the Worst Thing on Earth. I'm your host, Alton. With me, as always, is Reese.
Hello.
And today we have returning guest, Mitch. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going? I'm doing all right. Just, down under.
Mitch, who recently impacted my life by posting about World of Warcraft, which made me go, I'm gonna download that.
Oh no!
And then I was lost for 3 months until I beat the heroic raid.
I had to pull him out of an opium den from like the 1800s and just like smack the keyboard out of his hand and like get him into a cold turkey program.
Well, it was basically, he pulled me. I was like, I just have to do my plus 15 for the week. And he's like, no. And he slaps me and puts me in the hot water and then the ice cold water and then the hot water again. And they're like, oh, enough. All right, I'll uninstall.
That's what happened to me as well. Like, I was doing my plus 15s and my heroic Nihilotha before it became a problem.
Yeah.
And people had to put me in treatment.
Reese was telling me something about when he was raiding, and he went on this like whole story. It was like 5 minutes of explaining something that had happened, and I was like, "What the fuck does any of that mean?"
I explained what Mythic Plus was for 45 seconds, and I could hear his eyes glazing over, and he was just like, "I didn't understand any of that," and I was just like, "Fine, that's fine."
But Mythic Plus is the best thing ever, and I will die on this hill.
But I don't know what it is, and saying
fair.
saying the words involved did not clarify things at all.
Mythic Plus is like a way of doing the Warcraft dungeons that makes them progressively harder with different like variables each week to keep it interesting. A way of extending the content. I know that's just for the wowheads out there.
Yeah, let's get into the actual topic for this week, which this time we're talking about a specific game, but more in general, just Ubisoft. And I was looking around for people who would have just strong opinions about Ubisoft, and I asked Mitch, and he told me that he has a lot to say about Ubisoft. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, thank you for being on what might be the most depressing episode
We
will
always
do
bring
the
you
show.
on for like the fucking depressing shit. It's like, oh, the world's gonna be like 80% plastic by by like 2040 or something. There's a company like exclusively run by sexual assaulters. And they make video games about how BLM is a terrorist organization.
We really
That's
should
not
have
political.
planned like for every other article that we read, just like a story about a kitty cat who did something fun, just to keep things on the level.
Yeah, like those like Daily Dodo videos. It's like, you won't believe this old cat has been rescued, now has a new home. Then they'll say, all right, and now here's our next article. Rape genius Marcel Ancel makes another video game.
Oh God!
Oh, Jesus.
We're just gonna direct the listeners after every article to like that TikTok where the cat is sitting in front of the laptop.
Yeah.
That you sent me.
Honestly, there's been so much fucking news about Ubisoft, and I have not wanted to talk about it on this show because it's such a fucking bummer. It just hearing about it, reading about it just drains the life out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I think the Jimquisition has honestly done a way better job than I think I personally could have done covering this topic with their knowledge of the inside of the industry and their connections to like real journalists and shit. And as I have said before, also it bums me out. So the only reason we're talking about this is because it's directly related to a game, and it's so like outwardly heinous. Ubisoft, we've talked about them many, many times before, and their cowardice in terms of exploiting political imagery just for like their fucking advertisements, and then turning around and saying, oh, that's not political, we're not being political. It's so common that at this point it's basically a fucking joke. And we've also talked about things like how in the original Division, another Tom Clancy masterpiece, went around shooting like people that were supposedly escaped convicts in like the street. There were looters, quote unquote, who had like, I don't know, they had a couple of associations, uncomfortable associations with like the BLM, and it's like now they've just sort of made it explicit, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think too, on a personal level, it's just been building up between Alton and I.
Yeah.
Us just getting more enraged at Ubisoft with each story, and it just seems like talking about it seems like the best way to exorcise this particular demon from our soul.
Yeah.
It's definitely boiled over.
I've spent a lot of time covering Ubisoft games and just like getting frustrated by the quote unquote non-politics in these very political heavy games.
Mm-hmm.
So I also need the vent, I guess.
Yeah. And so to get into like their most, I would say most recent controversy, but by the time this comes out, who fucking knows? A recent controversy, which is a mobile game that they've created called Tom Clancy's Elite Squad, which, to read the words of their Twitter page, is a military role-playing game where you will assemble the most iconic characters from Tom Clancy's video game franchise to lead them in a real-time 5 vs 5 battle. And I really gotta say, other than like Sam Fisher, who the fuck is a fucking iconic character from Tom Clancy? Like a faceless like SWAT team member from fucking Rainbow Six? Your customizable character from the Division? Like who?
Yes, that's it.
Jesus Christ.
I'm looking at this roster now and like I legitimately have no idea who any of these people are apart from Sam Fisher.
He's like the only.
I've played a lot of Tom Clancy games.
He's like literally the only fucking guy I can recognize from. Okay, let me read a couple of these. Featured soldier, Ning Wang and Masood, and El Sueno. Fuck me. Like I don't. Valkyrie, Twitch.
These are all Rainbow Six characters.
Who are these people? They're just so generic. Like literally the only iconic character I think has ever been in a Tom Clancy game is Sam Fisher, because he's got like an iconic look. He's an iconic character. He has like his own extremely popular franchise. You know, there are people out there that say like Chaos Theory is one of the best games of all time. Like
I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's like Ubisoft, I think that Jim Sterling has talked about this before, that Ubisoft has like an issue with calling every single thing iconic.
Well, I think too is that we have to acknowledge this for what it is that this is the cheapest, shittiest mobile cash-in because everybody else is doing it. The same reason they have that battle royale that no one cares about, because they're a big company and they gotta have one.
That's so true. The bigger the company is, they just see like these trends and they're like, okay, we have to have that, and they have enough resources to make this terrible idea a reality.
I mean, it would be extremely funny if this was like all of like Tom Clancy's characters, like from the books. That could be so funny if it was like Harrison Ford's Jack Ryan as it like doing battle with with Sam Fisher. Now that's a game I might try and play, but it's just they're shitty characters. Nothing about these are actually iconic. It's just like, have you played the games that we already made? We made another one.
Like it's just fucking Tom Clancy. It's just gonna be like a generic soldier, like a grizzly veteran, like a gruff hero. Like they're all the same fucking guy.
Some really bad racial stereotypes.
Oh, yeah. All right. So that's the game. But the reason why it got into like the Twitter sphere news cycle is because of the intro cinematic back in August got uploaded, and it started a whole shitstorm because, you know, this is like the riots as of right now are still going on. But like they were at the peak of intensity, I would say, when this fucking trailer dropped, and just like everyone fucking looked at it and just mouth agape. And so what I'd like to do is, if you guys have it ready and pulled up, I would like to do a countdown and watch it and just have the audio for our viewers, because I think the visuals, we can explain some of the visuals, but I think the audio will be enough to get an idea of how bad this is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Vigatoto reacts.
Yes. All right. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm
ready.
All right. 3, 2, 1, play.
The world is in an alarming state. Wars, corruption, and poverty have made it more unstable than ever. As the situation keeps worsening, anger is brewing. From between the cracks, a new threat has emerged to take advantage of escalating civil unrest. They are known as Umbra, a faceless organization that wants to build a new world order. They claim to promote an egalitarian utopia to gain popular support. While behind the scenes, Umbra organizes deadly terrorist attacks to generate even more chaos and weaken governments, at the cost of many innocent lives. Simultaneously, they have been hacking social media to discredit world leaders and rally people to their cause. Under immense pressure, world leaders have come together to authorize a new international cross-agency unit designed to combat Umbra. It is clear, playing by the rules will not win this fight.
Yeah,
the leader
fuck
of this
the rules.
unconventional squad will need to recruit
rules
elite
like the
soldiers
Geneva
from every
Convention.
corner of the world, including the criminal underworld. As commander of this unprecedented squad, we need you to put an end to Umbra's campaign of
Is that El
chaos.
Sueno? Like
Welcome to Tom
bad
Clancy's
guy
elite
from
squad.
that like open world co-op game?
I think so.
I have the list.
Wildlands? Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
have friends
yeah,
that play
great.
that game a lot for some reason. And every time I look at it, I'm just like, this is like a shittier version of GTA's multiplayer.
What I got envisioned from that trailer is that it's like Sam Fisher, like in a badass gunfight against the other team is just some dude in Portland trying to break
Oh my
Starbucks
God.
window.
Oh my god.
Just some fucking teenagers like in black hoodies.
Exactly. Because, like, it is offensive in one way, but in the other way, that's exactly how the media is currently portraying Antifa in an election year. It's like a shadowy organization trying to bring down the government from without.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. It's just so grimy. I think Ubisoft, they're just like it's very thoughtless too. I think that was their reaction to it. It's like, oh, ooh, people are looking at this. We didn't expect that.
Yeah, that's
This
what
is our
they
shitty
fucking
mobile game.
always do. They literally just like they just take all the fucking news from like the last 3 weeks, put them like in a blender, and pick out different words to string together as a plot, and then are like, oh. Wait, people are upset we're using real things that happened and like in a careless way to sell our fucking microtransaction platform. I can't believe people are upset about this.
Ubisoft is just looking at these things that are happening and they're just like, well, it's Tom Clancy, so you can't do anything cool with it.
That's so fucking true.
Like, they're looking at it as if left bad, but if you just switched a few things and made it like actually the right and like alt-right shit is actually kind of doing this in reality.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't even think it's a fundamental like misunderstanding of the entire situation. Even if you were to base this on like you will have to take down like far right's terrorist organizations, it's like there's no organization. These are like people that have been brutally alienated and then radicalized by fascist rhetoric, going on these fucking lone wolf like shooting sprees because they've just gone off the fucking deep end. And that's why it's so difficult to predict. And then like the same with Antifa. They're like these, I don't know what it is about like conservatives where they see the like mass movements of like completely independent people reacting against what they view as something shitty and think, how could this many people think we're bad? It must be a shadowy organization.
I'm working with Everyman about something related to Tom Clancy, and kind of the conclusion that I've drawn of kind of like reviewing some of his older stuff is you just can't do any of that shit anymore because Tom Clancy was like pulling from these world events, the Cold War or the fight in the Middle East. All of that is broken down. Like, it's so clear now that the CIA, the military, all this other stuff is so ineffectual in reality, in combination with the fact that all of this kind of like violence that is socially kind of acceptable to engage with that's not from the state is so atomized that it's like, it would be kind of funny if there was like a squad shooter game that was about taking out like lone wolves like that, but it's not going to fit into any kind of narrative they want. So it's just pure bland nonsense like this trailer now, because there's nothing for them to go on to. It would like a real version of a Tom Clancy game, like the conservative outlook that's that kind of outsider, like dealing with things for real, would be like, it was like Tom Clancy's QAnon Squad.
Oh, no.
We take out all the pedophiles with our elite group of murderers.
Our elite group of operators who are all over 300 pounds. And then the healing mechanic is in the middle of battle. You have to take your insulin shot.
Oh man, all right, you got to take your Mountain Dew, then you can extra action point, and you can move 3 feet instead of 2 feet.
Right. I was like, oh no, your character is contracted, not eating nothing but meat constipation. Slow down for 3 movement.
Oh god.
What were you gonna say, Mitch?
Oh, like Tom Clancy died 7 years ago.
Yeah.
What the fuck has he got to do with this game apart from like some characters that I guess he wrote? Like obviously he like if he was alive today, he would definitely write a game like this. Like there's no question.
Yeah, except
But
he would make it
also-
even more. Listen, if he wrote a game like this today, he would make it even more explicit. There wouldn't even have to be an organization. You'd just be a group of people going out and brutalizing protesters.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if
you're
Tom
right,
Clancy
fuck.
was alive today, I absolutely agree. He would have been broken by the same thing that's broken all conservatives, and it would be 1,000 times worse. Not to call this good, but like every conservative kind of author like that has just gone off the deep end, or just like lives on a compound and doesn't write anymore. Like John Le Carre, his writing about the spy stuff in the Cold War, it's fun spy stuff, and after 9/11 he's just like turned straight into like we gotta murder the terrorists
They don't write fiction anymore. They write manifestos.
pretty much, or just they don't write fiction, they write the worst kind of fan fiction.
Yeah, they're all making fanfics for the Turner Diaries.
Pretty much.
And the other thing that he wouldn't have done is issue 2 apologies. One I wanted to get into is that Ubisoft, in typical fashion, as soon as they got any pushback on this at all, issued not just 1 apology, but 2. One from Ubisoft main account, and another from the actual developers.
Let's start with the developers.
Okay.
Mhm.
I will read this.
Very well.
An update from the team, and then a graphic with the words written on it. We have listened to players and the broader community who have pointed out the raised fist imagery, as well as how it's portrayed in the opening video, is insensitive and harmful. We sincerely apologize and will be removed in our next title update this Tuesday, September 1st, and replaced just with the word Antifa.
That's a little bit of creative writing on Reese's part. It just ends with
No,
September
that's what
1st.
it says. One of us is lying. One of us is telling the truth.
Right. And I think that another thing is that it's not just like the imagery, although that is particularly egregious and how it associates it directly with BLM. It's like the entire concept is like conservative fantasy. As I've said, the fact that they and their governments are so deeply unpopular does not compute with their worldview, and so they have to make up this whole fucking story about how, this unrest is totally fake. It's Russia. It's fucking the deep state and like Hollywood who are making people hate us. It's not just a natural reaction to our deeply fucking reactionary policies that immiserate and impoverish people, not just in the United States, but all over the world. And it's like, the concept, it's sort of like, it starts off by saying like, people have unrest. And it's just sort of like, okay. And then it just completely moves on from that, doesn't acknowledge that at all, and just says, but this shadowy organization is exploiting it. It's like, but you're not going to do anything about the things that are making people angry? It just makes me sad that there's such a lack of imagination.
I was gonna say that's kind of just like Ubisoft's MO, right? They're like, we'll just sweep this under the rug and everyone's forgotten.
Yeah, I mean, I get it that it's like, this is just for like a cheap ass motherfucking Skinner box for the mobile phone, but it's like, you have, I don't know. I should just give up on trying to assign any kind of meaning to it, because it feels like it's just an assembly line at this point. You know what I mean? It's like, people didn't think about what they were doing when they made this. They were like, okay, it's a Tom Clancy game. What's relevant politically? Riots. How can we make the rioters bad? Oh, I know. It's a shadowy organization.
And they have a fist.
Mm-hmm. And they're just like, okay, what means riot? Riots. Fist. Big fist. Fisting. We're gonna put fisting in the game.
That would rule. I would agree that I would say more so than any other of these big companies, like certainly not to speak well of like Blizzard or EA or whatever. Ubisoft, it's a company that whose product is the most synonymous with the term content I've ever seen.
It's just fucking there. It's not good. It's not bad. It's just there.
Even for like the plus things that you could say about like the gameplay of something like For Honor, which I've heard is good, or Rainbow Six, which I think does have like an interesting gameplay mechanic. They're involved. Like they just flatten all of the like, I don't know, the parts of it that have like any kind of like social or soulful human meaning, just like out of like just wick it away as much as possible. It's just there's a bomb and then there's just these random people from random nations who fight, and there's just no meaning aside. And that's what you have to do when you have to create so much scalable content when you're also part of the problem. They are a massive corporation that's publicly traded, and if they had like a good idea involving Tom Clancy that has to be a part of like the world stage, it would immediately affect their bottom line because conservative investors wouldn't like it or something like that, so it can never have any meaning.
They fucking have their own riots they could have done this shit about. It's like, why didn't they have like fucking, I wonder why Ubisoft didn't fucking make like a shadowy organization known as Umbra, and it just like, instead of the fist, it's just a fucking yellow jacket appears on the screen. I wonder, maybe it's because the fucking offices would get burned down.
Yeah
exactly, but they can look over the seas, and they're just like, don't quite make the connection because they are either,
that announcer, by the way, is like 100% like a French guy doing an American accent. Like you could tell.
I'm sure they just had somebody on who was just like, whose job it is to design lampposts. It's like, do your American accent or you're fired.
All right, let's move on. So we have actual articles about this that talk about it from like a serious perspective. So this is from Forbes. Ubisoft's Tom Clancy's elite squad appears to cast Black Lives Matters as villains, by Dave Thier, something like that. Ubisoft finds itself embroiled in controversy again today as the intro for its mobile game Tom Clancy Elite Squad appears to cast the player in opposition to global protests that use Black Lives Matter iconography, making for another public misstep for a company that has long had trouble separating militaristic messages from games that claim to be free of politics. The video suggests a fictional world gripped by widespread unrest and protest, a particularly resonant image in the wake of the very real protests that have spread across the country and the world in the wake of the police killing of George Floyd in late May, now reflamed by the police shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and the vigilante shootings that followed. In the game, the protests are being controlled by a shadowy organization known as Umbra and an elaborate conspiracy. By the way, if you look up what Umbra means, it's just like shadow, so points to being incredibly creative there.
Oh my god, I was wondering what that meant.
This might be a good time to bring up the article I read before this about what it's like to work at Ubisoft. And the person was like, I've never regretted anything more in my life because it is the worst corporate culture ever in terms of, all the awful stuff I'm sure we're going to get into a little bit more in a minute. But also, it's just like making creative decisions. It's just like so many people work on every game that it's just like everybody's just mad at each other about everything because they're not included in the decision.
Oh, speaking of that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but like literally several contract writers on the project tweeted that they were told that Umbra was more like a James Bond Spectre style organization and had no idea it would be framed this way. Okay, this is a tweet from Brendan Gibbons at Brendan Gibbons, angry about the use of the Black Power fist here. I clicked on it. I worked on the character BIOS and was informed that Umbra is supposed to be a James Bond villain organization, not something that looks like what the Q conspiracy people think is happening. Irresponsibly bad optics. Just to clarify, I was one of the several external writers who did some of the character bios.
No, that's exactly what they said. There's just this constant traffic jam of creative decisions, and what ends up happening is like the people up top just have like 4 people in a meeting, like a Zoom call, and they're just like, okay, we're gonna do this, this, and this, and just make the decision. And then the people who, whose job it is to care about this and work towards it, just like find out about it in a month. They're like, what the fuck? And so there's all this like boiling animosity at Ubisoft, supposedly, just because of stuff like that. And it's just like nobody is consulted about anything, and they have no clear vision, which is part contributes to the blandness of their games. And I'm not even like, I liked a fair amount of Ubisoft games like here and there, but it's like also you could see how much they struggle
King Kong,
to innovate from
the tie-in movie game. I'm sorry, continue.
No, what now I'm thinking about the King Kong. That was for 360?
Yes.
I remember that because I was working at a video store at the time, and my boss got like a brand new Xbox 360, and like the only game he got with it was like King Kong, and we were all just like, "Wow, the next generation!"
All fucking games.
I know. I watched like a retrospective on the game, and there were multiple opinions about it. Like people seem to think like, "Oh man, this is really good." And this ties back into our conversation, like with fucking Peter Jackson, the the infamous Hobbit lover who
My favorite person.
Yeah, who ruined who ruined like contract workers' rights in New Zealand. Working with Michel Ancel, who has also recently retired, quote unquote, from Ubisoft, and as soon as he left, there was reports from a French newspaper called Liberation that he has an extremely toxic and abusive leadership. So, 2 great guys who we love made that game.
Mitch, I wanted to ask you a question, and
Yes.
it's forgive me, I know that you couldn't be further away from France or a corporate viewpoint, but I'm curious from your perspective as an outsider looking into America, like what is the perception of the kind of riots and the BLM movement from where you're sitting? Because it's like here, it's like very present and very much a part of the discussion, and I don't know how that's viewed elsewhere.
Well, so like when the initial protests started kicking off, there was a lot of solidarity here. Like we had the Auckland Black Lives Matter, George Floyd protest march, which was there's a video of it somewhere. It was big. There was like thousands of people.
Awesome.
But then like, as news cycles shift, it just dropped. Like it's not really, if I wasn't online, as it were, I would not know they're still happening.
That's such a fucking problem with like news as a thing, is that it's like if something big and exciting happens, they're like, oh, we're all reporting on this, we're all jumping on this, and then if it just keeps happening, even though it's still happening, it's still like this big momentous moment that is ongoing. They're like, well, it's not news anymore, I guess, so we're just not going to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where this kind of stuff comes from, is that it's just like only the biggest, broadest idea can be absorbed into the corporate hive mind, and there's just no ability, even from people. I'm sure there are people who work at Ubisoft who have interesting ideas and maybe are actually good people who want to tell good stories, and there's just no way to do that. And so it just like eventually some shithead upper manager who's just like, oh, that's timely. And then no one else knows about it. And now the entire company, everyone who works there is tainted with this. Just to say Ubisoft sucks. It's bad poo-poo.
Yeah.
Just to get into the more broad issues with Ubisoft as a company. I mean, it seems like every week there's been a new news story reporting a different C-level executive being an abusive shithead. There was like the story of I don't remember which person it specifically was, but he was like, I don't know, he was like trying to like get people drunk. Yeah, like I honestly, I haven't been getting into it too deep as I've said before, just because it is such a bummer. But I would highly recommend that people go and watch Jim Sterling's videos about it. He has, at this point there are like at least 5 just covering Ubisoft's fucking shittiness. And I think honestly at this point, no matter how much you're looking forward to the new Watch Dogs game, just don't get it. Just don't support this company anymore. Like I know that there was like a time in like the game industry when Ubisoft was like one of the most fucking incredible like companies like in terms of games that they made. Like they made the Prince of Persia Sands of Time game. They made Beyond Good and Evil, Rayman, yeah.
Child of Light.
Yeah, they have so many good games.
I'll argue for the first Assassin's Creed. Like that was
even
interesting.
The second one.
The first 2 definitely were the solid ones. I just always mention the first Assassin's Creed because it was like a legitimately, like the setting was like that was like nothing else. Like the idea of telling this like really complex, weird sci-fi story, as much as we joke about it now, in the setting being Jerusalem, is just like no one else would have gone there, would have even thought to go there, and that was so cool. And now it's like they can't even get close to doing something like that again.
Like literally all their fucking games are exactly the same. Open world, Skinner boxes that just never fucking end, just filled with countless busy work. It's honestly kind of sad. I mean, I guess Rainbow Six Siege is the exception, but so many more of their games are that open world just trash.
I do have an anecdotal story about Assassin's Creed 1. It's not mine, obviously, and I don't know how true I guess it is, but like it lines up with everything we know about Ubisoft at this point. So, but basically, I went to a talk from a game developer. She was a character designer and was just like speaking in New Zealand, and she was saying that at like when they were doing the character design for Altair, he was quote unquote too Middle Eastern, and they had to white him up for Assassin's Creed 1, or otherwise they couldn't sell the game.
Oh boy!
Oh wow!
Which
I believe it.
Yeah, if you look at Altair's design, you're like, he's like vague, like the most vague gesture towards Middle Eastern character.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to lift up its broadness too much. It's more in comparison to what was there at the time.
Oh yeah, you just reminded me of that story.
Right.
I mean, that sounds.
They've had multiple stories like that, like the thing where they're like, "Oh, we can't add playable women to the multiplayer because that's too much work, too many animations." It's just like they've made these like horrifically bad excuses before about inclusion, and it's like it's only recently since like, and I'd like to give some credit just to like the developers working there who are essentially trying to fight back against this shit, that they had to like fight so hard to like include like a playable like woman option in Odyssey,
which is the way that you have to play that game for it to be even in any way enjoyable, because the voice performance of the dude character, it's like he's just like sneering and awful, but the performance from the female actor is like nuanced.
I would like to propose the way we name them be somewhat in line with how Mass Effect is named. So it's like Fem Shep, like male Shep. It's but it's Assassin's Creed, so it's male ass and fem ass.
I'm down with that.
Excellent. Femass all the way.
I honestly, I don't know what the overarching point of this episode is yet. I'm just covering what Ubisoft has done. This, like, if I'd wanted to make something about how all of their crimes, which I think at some point it might be worth doing, just like summarizing every single shitty thing that they've ever done, but it would be so much work because they have done so many things.
That'd be such a big episode.
Yeah.
The 10-hour
Ubisoft
event.
Oh god,
The cancellation of Ubisoft.
We should do that for like a live stream. Just do it as a charity. Just like every single bad thing Ubisoft has ever done.
Jesus.
We just do a shot of beer for every bad thing they do. We'll die of alcohol poisoning.
Yeah,
Fuck. That's kind of like, to bring it back around, I guess, to Elite Squad, like Far Cry 6, right? That trailer is almost the same kind of thing, just in a different country, right?
it's so iffy because like I can't tell if it's gonna be good or not, because it's like they're setting it in Cuba. It's during like a revolution against like a dictator, and it's like, how can you not make that against who was the fucking guy before Fidel? Batista? What was his fucking name?
His name was Barack Obama.
Oh yeah. I actually had it right. It's Fulgencio Batista. Yeah, so they've got it set in Cuba during a revolution, and how can you not make the bad guy Batista, which would make you, in the historical context, Fidel. You know what I mean?
It's not gonna.
And there's no fucking way that they go that direction. They're taking like the history of Cuba and removing all the parts from it that are like, oh, well, that's a little bit too left leaning. We got to get rid of that.
I can't believe I didn't make the full connection before this, but kind of all of their games are leaning real hard on this civil unrest thing, and then saying it's not political. Like Watchdog Legions, Far Cry 6, the Elite Squad game, and what's that? I feel like there's something else, but it's like all about the civil, like the state of the world right now, how much it sucks, and how in Ubisoft, which is plugged into that problem of late capitalism, just squeezing the blood from the stone of humanity, and this being like, it's not political. The Division, that's the other one, and it's honestly hilarious, like this weird kind of like psychic projection, like on a corporate level, of Ubisoft just being like, if we make a video game about Brexit, we're not responsible for being in the same like class of people who do it, you know? And like, just because you brought on Click Hawking doesn't mean that your hands aren't dirty on some level. And I wanted to mention, from what you were saying before too, it's like it's coming up most out of Ubisoft right now, while everybody else is like, oh, we're just doing games about elves, we're gonna stick to elves.
We're gonna wipe our hands of this one.
Yeah, like it's so easy just to make something fictional and like make your own fictional world. You can have it like inspired by things, but like not have it directly reference real world events. But they can't fucking help themselves. They're constantly harvesting headlines to put in their shitty games.
Yeah. Like Far Cry 5 with like small town Christian religious cults, like post-Trump. There has to be a direct parallel, right?
They've said as much. I've said it on other episodes where we've talked about it. But in Far Cry 5, they brought Jeff Gerstmann to an event, and they were like, isn't this fucked up that we're doing this white supremacist bad guy thing? And then after somebody got mad, it was like, no, it's not political, actually. We've been told by someone it's not political, so it's not. And so, you know, this is too, all the stuff that they're dealing with, they know what they're doing. They know it's going to raise their profile. Right. It's just obviously so fucking cynical, which is what makes them the worst of them all. Like even Call of Duty, which, you know, we all loathe, at the very least, it's just trying to pretend that the Cold War is still happening, and they're just like, we're just going to keep doing that,
Oh my
and
god.
not openly talk about like how culpable we are without mentioning our names.
I love that they tried to make war not political.
And then also have a trailer with a guy spreading like a right-wing conspiracy theory. That's fun.
Oh fuck, I forgot
They
about
had
that
like
too.
that ex-KGB agent who was like, yeah, the Soviet Union is gonna break down, it's gonna spread propaganda by making people unhappy with the government somehow. That's something that people wouldn't have been in the 1960s during the era of Jim Crow. Can't imagine why they would be mad. Must be Soviet propaganda. Like I said, this is a whole fucking thing over and over and over again. Like every single like right-wing conspiracy theory is to explain why people are upset with them when they do obviously heinous shit.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to like how people who work at Ubisoft are not necessarily like evil or the enemy. They really do suffer from the shittiness of Ubisoft more than anyone else because they're in direct contact with it. And pretty much the only way that they would ever have a voice to fight back against that shittiness is, for one, they can leak things to the press like they've done with like this abuse, and two, have a union.
I was gonna say,
And I've just, there's this article here from GameIndustry.biz back in July that says French union preparing collective lawsuit against Ubisoft amid abuse allegations. Solidaires Informatique invites victims of sexism and abuse to join as it seeks to take the publisher to court. This is from James Batchelor. And I think that this is very interesting because I hadn't actually heard of this before. I went looking for articles, but like the fact that they're suing Ubisoft on this is interesting. So I think we should read through this article.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good.
Okay. Solidaires Informatique promises total confidentiality and legal support, and it is not necessary to be a member of the union to take part. Quote, the repeated acts of harassment and sexual assaults, sexist acts and discrimination, as well as the impunity of the group that has been subjected, as well as the impunity that the group has been subjected to over many years, must be explained and repaired, the group said in its statement. Quote, the exclusion of a few prominent individuals, such as Chief Creative Officer Sergei Haskowit, is not enough, as those who have benefited from the group's activities are hiding under their leadership. The news follows reports that PR director Stone Chin has been fired, allegedly as part of efforts to root out the toxicity from Ubisoft's workforce. Ubisoft currently faces multiple allegations of abuse and harassment, particularly around the mistreatment of women. So far, several executives have stepped down or been dismissed, some facing accusations of their own and others in protest against the company's toxic culture. In addition to Haskowitz stepping down, director of Canadian studios Yanis Mallet and global head of HR Cecile Cornette has also left their positions. Solidaires Informatique quotes Cornette in its message, who purportedly said, Yves Guillemot, Ubisoft CEO, is okay with toxic management as long as the results of these managers exceed their toxicity level. It was recently reported that many cases of toxic behavior had been flagged to Ubisoft's HR department, but little to no action was taken. An expose yesterday revealed the toxic attitude against women even extends to Ubisoft's games, with executives insisting a male protagonist be added to Assassin's Creed Odyssey because female leads don't sell as many units. Oh yeah, so I must have misremembered that, because it wasn't that they had to add a female character, it's that was supposed to be the character of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. There was no male character originally. That was going to be like the main character, and they was like, you have to make it so that you can choose to be a male character.
That's fucked.
I know. Because it's like, being forced to play a male character, that's fine. Being forced to play a woman, I don't know. I guess we better offer player choice. Like, fuck Ubisoft.
It's interesting. This is really interesting to me. I am most curious about.
Ooh, here's the nice. Sorry to interrupt. Here's a nice little tidbit. Solidaires Informatique previously worked with Game Workers Unite to secure testimonials regarding the alleged presence of sexual predators at French developer Quantic Dream. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
About Game Workers Unite, not the sexual predators part. That's bad.
But yeah, I do think that's cool. I'm very curious about the kind of the French culture and how similar or different it is, because I can definitely just like see this being, an airing of the dirty laundry, and they just fire a couple people if this was an American company.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the power of French unions. I assume that they are more powerful, but don't know for sure.
America being like the places where unions go to die, I think that's a pretty safe assumption to make. All right, well, we're getting up to time, so does anyone have anything else they would like to say about Ubisoft?
I think it's absolutely wild. Like, remember the whole discourse about EA being quote unquote the worst? And like, yeah, they are very shitty. But Ubisoft have done way worse and have way more egregious practices, even like outside of all the misconduct and like shitty political washing that they do. And like, they get away with it. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing is that they had this period like in the PS2 Xbox era where they built up so much goodwill just by making really good games that it sort of carried them through like the next few generations, honestly. And it's like it'll be interesting to see if they can like maintain that public image of the good video game company that they've held on to for so long, because it's like you can get away with a ton of stuff if your games are actually compelling and the gamers are just sort of like, well, game good, you good.
Yeah.
As they want to do. But now I think that people are starting to realize like these are all the same fucking game. They've been releasing the same fucking game for the past 5 years, and it's not getting any better necessarily. So it's like, are they going to be able to actually like hold out against this? I hope not.
Yeah, it's definitely crumbling. Like the image, even outside of like the bullshit, like just the game image is definitely crumbling. And I guess you got to see what happens with Far Cry 6 and Valhalla. But it's Valhalla, right? That's
Valhalla's the next Assassin's Creed.
The Viking one.
They released like the first trailer with like the male character, and then like a couple of days later, I think they had the same trailer but female version.
No way! I missed that completely. My god!
The reaction was about what you would expect in terms of the comparative dislikes to likes for each trailer.
Yeah, let me go ahead and post it in the chat.
Oh wow, that's something.
It's just like official trailer parentheses female Eivor.
This is totally feeds back into the point that we've made a couple times, where the quote gamers unquote, not the people who just play games, but the people who take it on as an identity end up like carrying water for the corporations, because they're feeding into this idea that women can't be in the video game without you getting much less views and them getting mad about it.
Yeah, it is such like a fucking feedback loop, and it's really sad because it seems like the people who have actual power in Ubisoft are saying the exact same shit that like reactionary chud morons on the internet are. Like, video games, get woke, go broke. Get woke, go broke. I'm a C-level executive at Ubisoft.
I mean, I think the real tragedy is going to be that there won't really be a fall for them. It's just the worse things get for Ubisoft, the worse their games are going to get in the most like exploitive, like scalable way possible, or we'll just have like an Assassin's Creed gacha game that just like people are putting their entire paychecks to every month so they can get the assassin with the yellow hood for their game. I gotta get that rare drop.
I would respect Ubisoft so much more if they put in their new Division game the fucking president dying to fucking COVID.
Oh my god.
That's I mean, isn't the Division all about a disease that
exactly? It's perfect.
Oh man, we just gotta
get a cough.
I'm gonna start a Vigatuito account on Mod Nexus that just replaces the opening cinematic for the Division with just footage of President Trump.
Oh my god, the video! Yeah, videos of Trump like saying like, "Oh my god, what has he fucking said recently?" He's just like, he released a video, like 4 hours ago. Like he's saying he's learning a lot about COVID. It's the real school, not like the reading a book school. Like fucking just saying his incredible, truly iconic lines, not Ubisoft iconic. And then like he closes out with this line. Let me read it to you. We love the USA and we love what's happening. Which I agree. Well, this is the first time I've like fully agreed with the president. I'm like, yes, I love what's happening. Fuck.
But before we go, I want to ask one more question, Mitch. It's a little loosey goosey. I don't know quite how to get at this idea, but you've talked before how you're a little bit plugged into game devs down in New Zealand and people that you know. One thing that always strikes me about Ubisoft is, and I've talked about it in this episode, is how when games scale up to this sizes, how like the creative process breaks down and it just becomes like a fundamentally worse game than like a zillion games that you can get on Steam that have like more interesting ideas, even if though there are flaws. Like, what's your perception from talking with game devs about how easy it is to make creative decisions and make a game with more people? I don't know. Do you kind of get what I'm going with here?
I think so. Like, I guess there's only one, major game that comes out of New Zealand, but it also happens to be one of the biggest games on the planet. So that's like a kind of weird perception.
What game is that?
Path of Exile.
Oh, I didn't realize they were from New Zealand.
Yeah. Granny Games is like literally like a 20-minute drive from my house. And
you just go outside the office and just shout at them, "Give me free mount! Give it to
me!" But like everything else, and like I don't know if I had done this when I spoke to you last time, but I worked with Mini Motorways. Dinosaur Polo Club did Mini Motorways and Mini Metro. I'd worked with them. Maybe I was under NDA when I talked to you last time. But yeah, it's like a small company, 12 people, I guess. And that's kind of everyone I know in New Zealand.
Were you hired to force politics into the game?
Oh, absolutely. I made the trailer and I made it so political.
Just making a pro Antifa mini racer game.
Actually, no, now that I've thought about it, that game Ashen, did you hear about Ashen?
Oh yeah, we've played Ashen.
Yeah, so I know people, because that was also made in New Zealand. I know a few people that worked on it, and yeah, they kind of had their, I'm obviously not going to name them.
Never mind, I played From the Ashes, which is a different game. Remnant from the Ashes, which is a different game, which confused me.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Because they're both like Dark Souls likes as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like just a lot of creative decisions kind of blocked. Aurora 44 is the name of the company that made Ashen. But the people I know there couldn't really get into it because of NDA stuff. I guess any kind of bad thing that happens in New Zealand game dev is just not talked about. I don't even know if there's a union here.
Maybe it just seems like I honestly don't know how many like video game unions there are, because it seems like endemic to like the tech, any kind of tech related industry. It's just like, yeah, no unions. It's like anything that happened after like the height of unionization, just it got populated with like rich white boys who have no fucking clue how to make a union and are pretty hostile to that politically and just never formed.
Well, I'm sure it's international that dudes are just so passionate about video games. They played the Metroid and they loved it, that they're willing to just debase themselves. And not to suggest, you know, that the kind of game devs you're talking about, Mitch, but just like the reason why it's so hard to get, you know, a union going is because anytime anybody does, it's just immediately they're just all fired, and then they wait for the heat to die down, and then they just rehire everyone from a pool of video game colleges that they owe hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to.
And yeah, I know like a few devs in Australia as well who just want to get out of the industry because it's so fucked. That's why I think the life cycle of a game developer is 10 years before they like generally quit the industry, which is nothing.
Yeah, I think that's crazy, and that's the thing that's so insane to me is like people talk about how they should sacrifice all because otherwise video games would be worse. Assassin's Creed 7 might be smaller, God forbid.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
But if you could have people whose like whole lives, all they've done is make video games, like that knowledge like matters, and you can pass that experience down. And I think that actually unions as a whole would make video games so much better just because everybody would be better at making them. Not to suggest that the people who are making them now are unskilled, but it's just such a constant brain drain because it's suffering.
It would make it a genuine trade as opposed to what it is now, which is indentured servitude.
Yeah. Just shitty contract work.
Yeah, content mines, you know, where the few good ideas and not even few, like there are good ideas out there on the indie scene that you see all the time, and the good ones kind of get ripped off again and again until it filters up to the biggest companies, where Blizzard is ripping off the ripoff that got successful, and then that's all everyone thinks about or plays.
Yeah, really the only like indie games and like the modding scene are where creativity and risk-taking in video games are still happening. Like, unless it's made $1 million already, you can't sell the idea to a fucking C-level executive with just painfully broken worldview who will just tell you to your face that if you get woke, you will go broke, because apparently, in addition to just being complete assholes, they just browse 4chan all day.
I just watched that Errant Signal video about like the little spooky games that he played, and there were just like 5 indie games that all looked really cool that I'd never heard of, and all seemed to have like interesting ideas. I played that game where you like go around and you find the different liquids, and the different liquids, like you can find like beast blood or the serum of immortality. You feed it to the tree and that affects the whole future. And it's like this 90-minute game, and it was so impactful and interesting and
Fatum Betula. I also saw that video that you're talking about, and I also pulled that up as like the most exemplary of them. I was like, I mean, I was extremely high at the time while I was watching it, and I was like, man, this looks fucking great. And then after I pulled it up, I spent 3 hours looking at AI generated personas.
But yeah, it's just to say there's so much more interesting stuff that could be going on if we would just let video games get out of the way of themselves.
Let video games be controlled by the people who actually love them and are good at them, and not like fucking abusive assholes who just like their power and want to just keep making the same shit every fucking 2 or 3 years.
I will say every developer I know, at least like personally, is so progressive. Like I know a lot of trans people that work in the industry in New Zealand, like a lot of queer people, and like a lot of people that make the games are generally like pretty left. But then you have the executives who are just fucking, you know,
business school psychos.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's just, there's so much money in games, more money than anything else in entertainment, more or less.
Yeah,
And so
the biggest industry, bigger than TV and film somehow. Like that fact goes a long way to explaining why it's also the worst, most exploitative one.
Yeah, exactly. And why all these apologies and everything we experience are just like, oh, this is what we got to do just to keep on making as much money as possible. And we'll fire this HR director because who cares about him?
Yeah.
He's not a stockholder.
The fucking CEO, like Yves Jameau, is still fucking there. He's still like, even though he was like, some of the people that are getting canned right now were his personal friends, which probably has a ton to do with why they were allowed to get away with this shit for so long. And he's just there. He's not going anywhere. He's just like, oh, he makes his little apology and he's like, oh, we're dealing with the situation. We're listening to your feedback. And it's like, there's, without power from the bottom with a union or something like that, there's no way that this system will change of its own accord unless Yves Jameau gets coronavirus. So we're taking a
Alton, it's so true. Bobby Kotick personally walked into that New York jail cell and murdered Jeffrey Epstein. And nobody cared. Nobody cares.
Except for us, which is why
we care. I mean,
we are the truth tellers of gaming.
If I know every time that we don't release an episode for a month, everybody who follows the Twitter account is just like, they've been disappeared by the CIA. Exactly. They're speaking too much truth.
But it's actually just because we're sad. The world makes us sad, and that makes it hard to edit.
Exactly. It's the only thing that we can do to bear the pain of this terrible Earth is to play Destiny 2.
Oh my god! Yeah, exactly. All right, that's all the time we've got for today. We're at 1 minute 35 or 1 hour 35 minutes.
Oh yeah, that's plenty.
Yeah. So, Mitch, thank you for coming on to the pod.
Thanks for inviting me.
Where can people find you online and all your good work?
I guess I didn't say this, but yeah, heavy-eyed, one word, on YouTube, or heavy X-eyed on Twitter, because there's an account that has one tweet with without it, the X.
Nice.
And yeah, I make videos about games while we play them, and sometimes the effects they have on our planet. If you want to get real bummed out, watch my PlayStation War video.
Oh yeah. So yeah, we had a earlier episode with Mitch where we talked about the environmental impact of video games, which is very good. You should check that out. You should also check out his videos concerning the topic. You released the part 2, which is about like the actual console manufacturers using rare earth metals and shit, which
That's part 3.
Oh really? What was the part 2?
Yeah, I've got one about digital distribution and how that's actually worse than physical distribution.
Yeah, so go check out all those videos on his channel, Heavy Eyed on YouTube.
Check out his video about Mythic Plus so you can finally know what it is. It's a good video. He does good videos.
All right, so Reese, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me on the internet, on Twitter, at Your Very Good Bud, where I am posting goofs about Halloween no matter what time of year it is.
Hell yeah. That's the fucking real shit. This is our spooky Halloween episode.
Every episode, as far as I'm concerned, in my heart, Alton, every episode is the spooky Halloween episode.
That's 100% canonical. All right, and you can find me at Alton Plays on YouTube, 8Alton8 on Twitter. You can find our main account for Vigatoto on Twitter is at Vigatoto. What?
I'm sorry, I was thinking, because the last time you did this, you told me about the video where you asked me what it would be like if I was going to date Ian Miles Chong.
Yeah.
And I looked back at the video, and the question you asked was, what would be, imagine Ian Miles Chong was the perfect partner.
Yeah.
But they looked like Ian Miles Chong. And my response was, that would not be the perfect partner.
Yeah, so go check out that video.
The last time I did not remember us having that conversation. I'm sure it was 4 a.m. and we were both blitzed.
Yeah. All right. So our main account for Twitter of the Vigatoto is at Vigatoto. Our website is videogamesaretheworst.pinecast.co. You can check out our Patreon, patreon.com/vgotchateau. $1 a month gets you all the premium episodes. We're putting them out slowly, but we're starting to ramp back up production, hopefully. Where you can get our infamous Mountain Dew horror story episode, which is very appropriate for the season. And
Very good episode.
And our episode about... Oh, thank you. And our episode about how Bobby Kotick fucking killed Jeffrey Epstein, and we go through all the details.
Allegedly. Before, too, when I said that, it was allegedly.
Allegedly. Non-actionable. Parody. In Minecraft.
And the newest episode where we have my lifelong friend Everyman on to talk about video games. It's quite good.
Indeed.
They're all good.
To talk about the vile pervert known as what is his fucking name?
He's the drifter.
The drifter.
We can't get into drifter chat. All right, bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye.